It's codenamed J35Y8. And it's the new V6 for the Honda Pilot, except that this time Honda's dropped its iconic variable valve timing VTEC and added an additional camshaft for each bank. I'm talking about the first naturally aspirated dual overhead cam V6 in any Honda or Acura since the first generation NSX. Let's just dive right in. So the new V6 has the same bore, stroke, and compression ratio as the previous engine. In other words, the diameter of the cylinder is the same. Also, the phase of the engine cycle when the piston travels from top to bottom or vice versa is the same. And the ratio of the volume of the cylinder combustion chamber with its piston at the bottom position and top position is also the same. But now, here's what's interesting. It's not what this new engine has, but what the engine has left behind. Instead of Honda's iconic VTEC system, it has an additional set of camshafts by way of the TLX Type S's double overhead cam heads. To appreciate the change, you have to understand what VTEC is in the first place. Most car enthusiasts have heard of VTEC, but to be honest, not many understand or appreciate how it works. VTEC is a type of variable valve timing system that Honda specifically developed. It's been used in Honda and Acura models since 1989, including the Acura NSX and Integra Type R, as well as the Honda S2000 and the Civic Type R. VTEC helps improve the efficiency of the engine and enables the engine to perform a lot better at higher RPMs. And the VTEC system also gets you low fuel consumption at lower RPM. But here's the thing, the Honda VTEC system is distinct and is nowhere near the average variable valve timing system you find in other cars. Most other systems increase the oil pressure to shift the timing of the camshaft and open the valves earlier. But the Honda VTEC engine has two different cam profiles on a single camshaft. First, we have two rocker arms with their own low-profile cams for each cylinder. The engine operates these when you're at low RPM and low load and the rocker arms are on lock. And then there's also a central rocker arm with its own high-profile cam. It's unused at low RPMs, but at higher RPMs, the engine operates with a larger cam profile. As engine speed rises, the piston inside the rockers gets pressurized with oil, and that locks all three cams together to increase valve load. In other words, the opening gets bigger and therefore enables more air to get into the engine. And actually, that's why you hear the iconic sound of the VTEC kicking in. It's that raw, loud, high-revving signature sound that gets your adrenaline running. Funny enough, Honda first came up with the VTEC concept in the 1980s. It used it first for its CBR 400 motorcycle back in 1983. At that time, the concept was called Revolution Modulated Valve Control, or REV for short. It wouldn't be another 6 years until Honda would first add VTEC to one of its cars, the 1989 Honda Integra XSI, thereby creating an uproar in the car industry. Other car makers use variable valve timing, but they use different mechanisms and technologies. For example, BMW has Valvetronic. Toyota's technology is called VVTL/I. Honda wasn't the first to use variable valve timing, but it was a pioneer with its VTEC technology because it was the first car maker to combine lockable rocker arms and dual profile cams. It enabled Honda to combine two engine characteristics into one single engine and change it while it was still running. The concept and mechanism itself is so simple in hindsight, yet the output and result was remarkable. Anyway, here's the thing about the Honda's new V6. It doesn't have Honda's signature VTEC system at all, and it comes as a surprise, since VTEC has been so iconic to Honda. It begs the most obvious question, if VTEC's so great, why is Honda ditching it on this engine? The new J35Y8 V6 engine boosts the horsepower up to 285 horses in total in the new Honda Pilot. That's just a nominal gain of 5 horsepower. And the car retains its current 262 pound-feet of torque. But where the new engine really shines is when it comes to emissions. And that's why Honda ditched its VTEC. So you can blame it on emissions and regulations. It turns out the new engine is significantly cleaner than preceding ones. We're talking some 40 to 50% reduction in emissions with this new engine. Part of this efficiency improvement comes down to the engine's improved direct injection system. This improved system means more precise fuel delivery. On top of that, the system can also add up to 3 sprays per combustion cycle, and in the process, it uses smaller injector holes. And because there's no VTEC, the cam phasers can now continuously and precisely adjust intake and exhaust timing. But, well, let's just say that there hasn't been too much excitement around the new engine. Actually, some Honda fans are pretty disappointed since it doesn't have the same performance gains that Honda owners were hoping for. But here's the thing. Its intent is to help Honda bridge the gap until it either electrifies its current lineup or develops new EVs. Honda's another late bloomer in the EV game. It's trying to catch up with this newer, cleaner V6 as a stopgap measure. In the car world, Honda's been neck to neck with Toyota. These two Japanese car giants have been making waves for years. If you ask me, I think competition in the car industry is a good thing. It's what moves the car makers to constantly up their game, take risks, and innovate. And that's good for the end consumer, us. Honda and Toyota's rivalry have been described as one of the hottest rivalries in the industry. Each offer its own unique cars, some of which have become very iconic, with a cult-like following. Each company has influenced the entire car industry for decades. But of course, the two companies aren't exactly alike. They may share similar interests, but there are key differences between the two. For example, if you look at Honda, you'll see that Honda puts its focus on speed and handling, contrast to the Toyota, which prioritizes dependability and reliability instead. Despite different strategies, each have put out some of the most legendary car engines to date. Toyota just doesn't have one specific famous engine. Rather, Toyota is generally known for everything from its tiny 3-cylinders to a V10 and even iconic inline 6s. Honda, on the other hand, is quintessentially famous for VTEC engines. VTEC's been around for 30 plus years. In fact, there are 5 particular VTEC engines that are notable in my book as the top Honda engines of all time. You could say these engines were VTEC milestones in their own right. It first started with the 1989 Honda Integra XSI. That was the first Honda to ever use the VTEC system, and it came with a B16 engine, which some Honda fans still call one of the greatest engines of all time. The first generation B16A engine was a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder double overhead cam VTEC engine. It output 160 horsepower at 7,600 RPM and 110 pound-feet of torque at 7,000 RPM. It was also a milestone because it was the first ever mainstream naturally aspirated engine to hit the 100 horsepower per liter mark. I say mainstream because, if you want to get technical, the first production car to hit that mark was the Ferrari 250 GTO. But let's be real, Ferrari's not really mainstream. A year later, we saw the C30A, and we saw it in the NSX, which is Honda's first attempt at a super sports car. That's when Honda started getting into Formula One. The first generation C30A was a 3-liter double overhead cam VTEC naturally aspirated V6 engine, and this engine churned out 270 horsepower at 7,300 RPM, 209 pound-feet of torque at 6,500 RPM. Half a decade later, we then had the B18C in the 1995 Honda Integra Type R DC2. I'm talking about a 1.8-liter 4-cylinder double overhead cam VTEC engine. The engine pumped out 197 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. Max torque was 131 pound-feet at 7,200 RPM. In fact, it was hailed as the ultimate Honda VTEC. Others called it the greatest front-wheel drive performance car ever, and even the best handling front-wheel drive car ever, and it was for its time. Another notable VTEC was the F20C. The first car to be blessed with that engine was the 1999 Honda S2000 Roadster. It was a front-engine, rear-wheel drive sports car with an open top. We're talking a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that generated 246 horsepower at 8,600 RPM and a maximum torque of 150 pound-feet of torque at 7,500 RPM. The F20C won the record for the highest specific output of a naturally aspirated engine in a production car. And in fact, it held that record for a solid 11 years. It wasn't until 2010 when Ferrari beat the record with 458. And even then, it only trumped the record by a mere 1 horsepower per liter. Ha! And of course, we have the famous K-Series engine. It was the successor to Honda's iconic B-Series engine as a flagship 4-cylinder double overhead cam engine. It was larger than the B-Series since its engine displacement ranged from 2 to 2.4 liters, compared to the B-Series engine, which ranged from 1.6 to 2 liters. We saw the K-Series engine in Honda from the early 2000s till the mid-2010s, and actually it's still even used in current Civic Type Rs. In particular, the K20A is especially noteworthy. It's a high-performance variant that you see in the Type R model, like the DC5 Integra Type R and the FD2 Civic Type R. I'm talking 222 horsepower at 8,000 RPM and peak torque of 159 pound-feet of torque at 6,100 RPM. But let's talk a bit about the pros and cons of a VTEC engine. Even though Honda's new engine doesn't have VTEC, previous models do. So if you're in the market for a Honda, for example, it'll help you know the pros and cons of VTEC. I'd say that the biggest advantage to VTEC is, well, basically, VTEC is the replacement for displacement. VTEC gives you a ton of power at very high RPM. Contrast that with an average ordinary engine with standard variable valve timing, and it's not possible. So if you're looking to get power and you want to save a few bucks, VTEC is probably one of your best bets. And even if your vehicle outputs, let's say, 110 horsepower, it'll feel a lot faster than a car that generates more power. That's because you'll have to shift later and beat a car with more power in a straight line. They say the sky's the limit when you're running a VTEC. VTEC also delivers significant fuel economy at lower RPMs, especially if it's a single overhead cam VTEC. Reason is, it has one camshaft. But bear in mind, VTEC has a set of disadvantages too. I'd say one of the biggest is that turbo engines are longer VTECs. I mean, they might be called VTEC, but that's not the case. That's because the VTEC has moved to the exhaust camshaft instead of the intake. So no more performance or the sounds of the VTEC kicking in. All eyes are on the 2024 Mazda CX-90. Reason is, it's Mazda's first time to offer an inline six in the US. Plus, it's also Mazda's first ever plug-in hybrid offering. In case you weren't aware, the new CX-90 is actually a replacement for the existing CX-9. It's larger, more rugged, with more premium features. The CX-90 is offered in many configurations. It comes available as a standard 3.3-liter turbo, which outputs 280 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. You also have the option for standard all-wheel drive and My Drive that allows you to switch between 4 different driving modes. But the one that's turning heads, the most powerful one, has a high output 3.3-liter e-Skyactiv G, which gets up to 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque when boosted by its 48-volt mild hybrid system. By the way, let me clarify that this output is only possible when you're using premium gasoline. Otherwise, with regular gasoline, you'll get up to 319 horsepower instead. But let me clarify that you can't drive the model running on pure electricity alone. The purpose of the hybrid system is to boost the performance of the combustion engine and also increase efficiency in power start and stops. Not to mention power accessories like AC and so forth. The difference is that with the powertrain in those models, you're looking at around 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque with premium fuel. As well, you can also tow up to 3,500 pounds with a 200 kilowatt-hour electric motor coupled with a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine in these models. Because of the additional electric motors, these PHEVs have a combined range of 490 miles. But just know that the electric part of the engine range is only 26 miles. Gasoline, on the other hand, will get you 464 miles on a full tank. But let's put the 2024 CX-90 into perspective. Let's compare it with some of its biggest competitors, namely the Toyota Grand Highlander, Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade, and Volvo XC90. Well, to start, the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander completely blows the 2024 CX-90 out of the water when it comes to horses and torque. With the hybrid max powertrain, the Grand Highlander offers 362 net combined horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. The Grand Highlander also starts at almost $3,000 below the CX-90 price and has more cargo space by more than 10 plus cubic feet. But the CX-90 wins both over the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade in terms of horsepower and torque. If you look at the 2023 Hyundai Palisade and all 3 engine options in the Telluride's highest trim, which is the SX Prestige X Pro with the 3.8-liter V6, while each of those models only pump out 291 horsepower with 262 pound-feet of torque. But the Volvo XC90 crushes all the models I mentioned. The Volvo XC90's most expensive model, the TA-E all-wheel drive 6-seater, gives you a whopping 455 combined horsepower and 523 combined pound-feet of torque. Some people are wondering why Mazda decided to take the turbocharged inline 6 route, especially considering that many car companies right now are already electrifying their vehicles in battery electric ones due to the upcoming combustion engine ban. The thing is, in recent years, Mazda has been trying to push a more premium feel for its brand. And what do upscale car makers like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Land Rover, and Jeep have in common? They all offer inline 6s in their lineups. So when you consider the fact that the CX-90 is poised to be Mazda's flagship SUV, making a switch to an inline 6 for this vehicle is a good strategy, and it makes a big statement. It says to the world loud and clear that it wants to be taken seriously in the upscale market. So, competitive reasons, Mazda chose a new rear-wheel drive platform, and that decision thereby enabled a long dash-to-axle ratio. I'm talking about the distance from the dashboard to the front axle. Not many people know this, but actually, it's this distance that gives premium cars their elegant proportions. Here's the thing. Typically, you can't fit an inline 6 transversely in a front-wheel drive's engine bay. Reason is, inline 6s are longer than inline 4s and also V6 engines. And that's where the beauty of the new Mazda rear drive platform comes in. It enables Mazda to place the new engine longitudinally rather than transversely, and therefore fit the SUV with a straight 6. By the way, what makes an inline six so different compared to other engines like a V6? Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is the shape. A V6 has 6 cylinders placed in a V, where an inline six has 6 cylinders arranged in a straight line. The inline six engine design is pretty straightforward to manufacture. It only needs 1 cylinder head, 1 gasket, and half the number of many other parts compared to what a V6 engine needs. It also has a shorter timing belt and superior lubrication. On top of that, inline six engines often produce more torque at lower speeds than V6s, and they're usually quieter and have relatively less vibration. That's why BMW uses inline six for their top cars. Mazda's new inline six has a displacement of 3.3 liters, is boosted by single turbo, and incorporates a 48-volt hybrid assist system that can add an extra 17 horsepower and 113 pound-feet of torque. It's funny because many automakers are happy setting on 3 flat liters as sufficient displacement for their inline sixes. But Mazda decided to go larger, 10% larger to be precise. And we're talking about a 12-to-1 compression ratio. When you put that all together, the compression ratio plus larger displacement and hybrid assist system, what you get is a better low RPM torque and throttle response when the engine is off boost. They say the devil's in the details, and Mazda really added some small details to CX-90. For example, let's check out the doors. It swings open to nearly 90 degrees, which is more than most people expect. Basically, Mazda made it similar to the doors of the CX-50 to make extra room for passengers to enter and exit the cabin. Now, if you compare the front seats of the CX-9 with the CX-90, you'll see the CX-90 seats are farther apart. I'm talking about an extra width front and also between the captain's chairs in the middle row. As well, the captain's chairs have the option for heating and cooling. Another artful detail is the dash. Turns out the fabric is based on the Japanese hand-weaving technique called nishijinari. Basically, it's a random pattern with some golden thread woven through it. And in the middle of the fabric, bold stitching that's inspired by hand bookbinding and weaving techniques called kumihimo. Guess how many trim options there are for the 2024 Mazda CX-90. If you're thinking 3, 5, or maybe 7, well, you're not close. Get this. CX-90 comes in 11 trim levels on top of 3 engine options. But here's the question. Which trim is the best option? Well, here's a quick breakdown. Starting with the turbocharged inline 6 models, we've got the Select trim with a base MSRP of $39,595. That's the cheapest trim. Then there's the Preferred trim with a starting price of $43,445, followed by the Preferred Plus trim at $45,900. Next is the Premium trim at $48,900. Then it's the Premium Plus trim at $52,950. S trim at $51,570. S Premium at $56,450. And the last turbocharged inline 6 model is the S Premium Plus trim at $59,950, and this is the most expensive trim. There are 3 more available trims for the 2024 CX-90 PHEV models. I'm talking about the PHEV Preferred trim with a base MSRP of $47,445. Then there's the PHEV Premium trim at $52,900. And last but not least, the PHEV Premium Plus trim at $56,950. But here's the thing about these trims. It's not just about comparing prices. You have to see what's under the hood because that's what makes the difference. The standard CX-90 powertrain is a 3.3-liter inline 6 coupled with a 48-volt mild hybrid system. With standard gas, it churns out 280 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. With S trim models and premium fuel, those numbers get bumped up to 340 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque when you turbocharge the inline 6. The PHEV versions get their power from a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder coupled with an electric motor. If you're pumping up premium gas, that means you're looking at an output of 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. As well, each of these 3 powertrain setups are associated with the new 8-speed automatic transmission, not a CVT transmission. Now, let's talk about some of the features that stand out in the CX-90. The base model, which is the Select trim, comes with 10.25-inch center display, leatherette seating, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, Mazda's iActiveSense safety features, and automatic climate control. But when it comes to the cabin, the Select trim is only available in an 8-passenger seating configuration. With the Preferred trim, we get a sunroof, second-row window shades, heated front seats, and some exterior upgrades. The Preferred Plus trim bumps up the towing capacity with a total towing capacity of up to 5,000 pounds. It also comes with wireless charging and a head-up display. Premium models come standard with additional features like 21-inch wheels, second-row captain chairs, a panoramic sunroof, a hands-free liftgate, and Bose 12-speaker audio systems. Premium Plus model is where you start to see more luxury. I'm talking about dual 12.3-inch displays, Apple leather seats, additional driver's aids, ventilated front seats, heated second-row seats, and more. Honestly, pretty much most of the same features can be found in each trim level, whatever engine choice you have. That being said, PHEV models do feature an EV mode for all electric driving. Speaking of PHEV models, the PHEV Premium trim also comes with a 1500 watt charging outlet in the cargo area for charging equipment. PHEV Premium models also can be equipped with the optional dual seats on the third row instead of the standard 3-passenger bench in other trims. And on S Premium and S Premium Plus trims, a 2-seat third row comes standard. So, which of these trims is the best? Well, the S trim will give you the most bang for your buck, mainly because of its 340 horsepower turbocharged engine and other features like the larger wheels, panoramic sunroof, second row captain's chairs, and Bose audio system. The S model is your best bet if you're willing to pay for more power. On the other hand, those who don't care as much about towing ability or overall power will be fine with the preferred trim. That's because it has a wide combination of features for a price that won't bankrupt your wallet. The Premium and Premium Plus models are generally for those who place a high importance on fuel economy and the ability to drive on all electric power. Here's the interesting thing. When you look at overall customer data so far, there appears to be one trim that consumers seem to be gravitating towards the most, and that's the Preferred Plus trim. This trim seems to be the most popular among CX90 buyers for a variety of reasons. First of all, the starting price of $45,900 puts it towards the middle of the scale when you compare across all 11 trims. Also, this trim comes with extra driving modes like Sport Mode, Off-Road Driving Mode, and Towing Mode. You'll also get a 5,000-pound towing rating, wireless CarPlay, Android Auto connectivity, a wireless charger, and a heads-up display, plus more. But now, you tell me, what do you think of the new Mazda Inline-6 Turbo? And which feature is your favorite in the 2024 CX-90? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.